Dr. Amanda Cross stood in her small office at the United Nations building in New York City. Papers covered her desk. Coffee cups sat everywhere. She had not slept in 3 days. Her hands shook as she tried to read the same report for the 10th time. The aliens were coming today. Not just any aliens. The Zelathi Empire. They ruled 12 different worlds across the galaxy. Their message to Earth had been clear and cold. They would come to see if humans deserved to join what they called civilized society. Amanda did not feel very civilized right now. She looked at her reflection in the dark computer screen. Her brown hair stuck up in strange directions. Her white lab coat had coffee stains on it. She was supposed to be Earth's top expert on alien life. She felt like a fraud. Down the hall, President John Hayes was getting ready for his big speech. Amanda could hear him practicing through the thin walls. His voice kept cracking on the important parts. She felt sorry for him. The whole world would be watching. Millions of people wanted answers he did not have. General Rick Stone walked past her office. His boots made loud sounds on the floor. He carried a thick folder marked Top Secret in red letters. Amanda knew what was inside. Battle plans, just in case the aliens decided humans were not worth keeping around. Ambassador Lisa Park knocked on Amanda's door. She looked as tired as Amanda felt. Her usually perfect suit was wrinkled. Her makeup could not hide the dark circles under her eyes. "How are you holding up?" Lisa asked. Amanda laughed, but it did not sound happy. "I've studied alien life for 15 years. I know everything about bacteria from Mars and ice crystals from Europa. But I don't know anything about real aliens, the kind that build spaceships and destroy planets." Lisa sat down in the chair across from Amanda's desk. "None of us do. We're all just making it up as we go." They sat in silence for a moment. Outside the window, they could see crowds of people in the street. Some held signs welcoming the aliens. Others demanded the government protect them. Most just looked scared. Amanda's computer made a beeping sound. A new message appeared on the screen. She read it and felt her stomach drop. "They're here," she said. Lisa stood up fast. "Already?" They said noon. "It's only 10:30. Aliens don't follow human schedules," Amanda said. She tried to sound calm, but her voice was too high. They rushed to the big conference room on the top floor. President Hayes was already there, along with 20 other important people. Everyone looked nervous. General Stone was talking quickly into his phone. Ambassador Park was reading from a stack of papers. Through the big windows they could see the alien ship hung in the sky above New York City like a giant crystal. It was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. Sunlight passed through it and made rainbow patterns on the ground below. The ship was bigger than any building Amanda had ever seen. "My God," President Hayes whispered. "How do we even talk to something like that?" Amanda watched as 3 beams of light shot down from the ship. They landed in the empty parking lot next to the United Nations building. The light was so bright she had to look away. When it faded, 3 figures stood where the beams had been. The aliens did not look like anything from the movies. One looked like a giant insect, but it stood on 2 legs and wore something that might have been clothes. Its skin was dark green and shiny. It had too many eyes. The second alien was made of crystal, just like their ship. Light moved through its body in strange patterns. It had no face that Amanda could see, but somehow she knew it was looking at them. The third alien was the strangest of all. It looked like it was made of pure energy, like lightning trapped in the shape of a person. It flickered and moved like fire. "Okay," President Hayes said. His voice was barely a whisper. "Let's go meet them." The plan was simple. President Hayes would give a short welcome speech. Then Amanda would present Earth's scientific achievements. General Stone would show them human technology. Ambassador Park would handle all the formal diplomatic stuff. But plans never work out the way they should. Jake Miller was supposed to meet the aliens at the door and bring them to the main conference room. Jake worked for the State Department, but he was not very important. He mostly filled out paperwork and got coffee for his boss. Someone thought he would be safe. He would not say anything stupid because he would not say anything at all. Jake stood by the main entrance, wearing his best suit. His palms were sweaty. His heart was beating so fast he thought it might explode. When the doors opened and the 3 aliens walked in, Jake's mind went completely blank. The insect alien was even bigger up close. It had to duck under the doorway. The crystal alien made soft ringing sounds when it moved, like wind chimes. The energy alien left small burn marks on the floor where it stepped. Jake stared at them. They stared back at him. Time seemed to stop. Then Jake started talking. He could not help himself. When he got nervous, words just fell out of his mouth. "Oh wow," he said. "Welcome to Earth. I'm really sorry about the weather today. It's been super humid all week. I bet that was annoying for you guys, flying through all that thick air. Our atmosphere is probably way too thick compared to what you're used to." The aliens looked at each other. At least, Amanda thought they did. It was hard to tell with beings that did not have normal faces. Jake kept talking. "I'm sorry about the traffic getting here. I saw on the news that people are driving really slow because they're all looking up at your ship. That must have been frustrating. Also, sorry in advance for, well, us in general. Humans, I mean, we're kind of a mess. We argue a lot and we break things, and we're not very good at keeping our planet clean." Amanda watched from the security monitors in the conference room. Her mouth fell open. This was not how first contact was supposed to go. Jake was supposed to say hello and bring them upstairs. Instead, he was apologizing for the entire human race. The insect alien made a sound like clicking. The crystal aliens. Light patterns changed color. The energy alien flickered brighter for a moment. "I mean, don't get me wrong," Jake continued. "We're really excited to meet you. This is like the biggest thing that's ever happened. But I just want you to know that we know we're not very impressive. We still use fossil fuels, and we haven't even been to Mars yet. Well, we sent some robots, but that's not the same thing. You probably have cities on Mars, or maybe you don't even need planets. You look like you might not need planets." President Hayes was pulling at his hair. "Someone needs to stop him," he said, but Amanda was fascinated. The aliens were not acting the way she expected. They were not demanding to speak to Earth's leaders. They were not making threats or issuing ultimatums. They were just standing there, listening to Jake apologize for things that had never occurred to Amanda to apologize for. "Anyway," Jake said, "I'm supposed to take you upstairs to meet the president and all the smart people. They have speeches prepared and everything. I'm sure their speeches are way better than whatever I'm saying right now. I'm not really good at this whole talking thing. Sorry about that too." The insect alien spoke for the first time. Its voice sounded like gravel in a blender, but somehow Jake understood it. "You are sorry for the weather?" it asked. Jake nodded. "Yeah, humidity is terrible. Makes everything sticky. You are sorry for your species?" "Well, yeah. I mean, look around. We've got wars and pollution and reality TV. You guys probably have everything figured out. We're still learning." The crystal alien made more ringing sounds. The energy alien pulsed different colors. Amanda realized something incredible was happening. In all their preparations, no one had considered that aliens might be surprised by human behavior. They had planned for every possible alien reaction. Except curiosity. The insect alien looked at Jake for a long moment. "This is most unusual," it said finally. "Yeah, sorry about that too," Jake said. The main conference room felt too small now. President Hayes stood behind the wooden podium, looking at the 3 alien visitors. They sat in chairs that had been quickly brought in. The insect alien's chair creaked under its weight. The crystal alien did not really sit so much as hover above its chair. The energy alien flickered and sparked, making everyone nervous about the electronics in the room. Behind the aliens, 20 of Earth's most important people tried to look confident. Amanda Cross sat next to General Stone. Ambassador Park had her hands folded so tightly her knuckles were white. Everyone was waiting for the president to say something brilliant. President Hayes looked down at his prepared speech. He had practiced it 50 times. It talked about human achievements and our desire for peace. It mentioned art and science and democracy. It was supposed to make humans sound impressive, but after listening to Jake Miller apologize for humidity, the speech seemed wrong somehow. "Welcome to Earth," the president began. Then he stopped. The words he had memorized would not come out. Instead, different words started flowing. "I'm really sorry our planet isn't as advanced as yours," he said. "I know you've probably seen civilizations that figured everything out thousands of years ago. We're still making a lot of mistakes down here, big ones. Sorry about all the carbon dioxide you probably noticed flying in. We're working on that, but we're not very fast learners." Ambassador Park closed her eyes. This was not the plan. "Sorry. About humans in general," President Hayes continued. "We fight too much. We waste resources. We can't even agree on what pizza toppings are best, let alone important stuff like how to run a planet. You probably think we're pretty primitive." The insect alien, who had introduced himself as Commander Vex High, tilted his head. In all his travels across the galaxy, he had never heard a planetary leader begin first contact by listing his species' failures. "We've prepared some presentations," President Hayes said, "to show you what we've accomplished. Though honestly, it's probably not much compared to what you're used to." Dr. Amanda Cross was called up first. She had prepared a slideshow about human scientific discoveries. Pictures of the International Space Station, the Human Genome Project, quantum computers, and medical advances filled the big screen behind her. But as she talked, she kept making the achievements sound smaller. "This is our space station," she said, pointing to a picture. "It's pretty tiny. We can only fit 6 people up there. You probably have cities in space. This must look like a treehouse to you." She clicked to the next slide. "We mapped human DNA. All 3 billion base pairs. It took us 13 years and cost billions of dollars. You probably figured out genetics before you invented the wheel. Well, if you ever needed wheels, you might just fly everywhere." Commander Vex High looked at Scholar Morden, the crystal alien. Scholar Morden's internal lights were pulsing in patterns that meant confusion. In their database of thousands of species, they had never encountered anything like this. "We've got some medicines that can cure diseases that used to kill millions of people," Amanda continued, "but we still can't cure everything. We're probably doing it all wrong compared to how you do it. We still don't even understand how our own brains work." Diplomat Zarathik, the energy alien, flickered brighter. This human was describing achievements that many spacefaring species had never accomplished. Yet she acted as if they were embarrassing failures. After Amanda's presentation, General Stone showed them human technology. Military equipment, computers, satellites, nuclear power plants. But he also kept apologizing. "Our fastest jets can barely break the speed of sound," he said. "You probably crossed the galaxy in an afternoon. Our computers can do 1 billion calculations per second, which sounds impressive until you remember you built something that can travel between stars." The aliens were taking notes, but not the kind of notes the humans expected. They were not writing down human weaknesses to exploit later. They were trying to understand why a species would achieve so much while believing they had achieved so little. Ambassador Park tried to salvage the situation with formal diplomacy. She had studied alien contact protocols from every science fiction, movie, and book ever made. She talked about trade agreements and cultural exchanges and mutual defense treaties. But even she started apologizing halfway through. "We don't really have much to offer in trade," she admitted. "We're still figuring out our own planet. We can't even stop wars between countries, let alone help with galactic problems. We'd probably just mess up whatever system you have working." "Commander," Vex High asked to speak privately with his companions. The humans left them alone in the conference room. Worried they had already failed some kind of test out in the hallway, President Hayes looked defeated. "We're blowing this," he said. "They're going to decide we're too pathetic to bother with." But Jake Miller, who had been quietly following the group around, did not agree. "I don't think they look annoyed," he said. "They look confused. Like they've never seen anything like us before. That's not necessarily good," General Stone said. "Maybe it is," Jake replied. "Different can be interesting." The aliens called the humans back into the room. Commander Vex High stood up, which made him tower over everyone else. "We would like to see more of your civilization," he said. "Not presentations. Real places where normal humans live." This was not in any of the protocols. Ambassador Park started to object, but President Hayes cut her off. "Where would you like to go?" he asked. "Anywhere," Scholar Morton said. The crystal alien's voice sounded like music played through water. "We want to see how your species behaves when they are not trying to impress us." 2 hours later, they were all standing in the Smithsonian Museum of Natural History. Pete Jackson, who had worked as a tour guide there for 12 years, was explaining the dinosaur exhibits to 3 alien visitors. He was handling it about as well as anyone could expect. "These are dinosaurs," Pete said, pointing to a massive T-Rex skeleton. "They lived here millions of years ago. Then they all died when a big rock hit the planet. Pretty stupid way to go. Extinct, if you ask me. You guys probably never had asteroid problems. You probably just moved planets out of the way or something." He led them to the human evolution exhibit. "This shows how we evolved from apes. Took us millions of years to figure out how to walk upright and use tools. Super slow learners. Other species probably evolved intelligence in like a weekend." Commander Vex High was fascinated by the displays, but not for the reasons Pete expected. "Your species preserves the history of creatures that came before you." "Well, yeah," Pete said. "They were here first. Seems rude not to remember them. Sorry, the exhibits are probably boring compared to what you've seen on other planets." Diplomat Zarathek flickered different colors. "You honor the dead of other species?" Pete looked confused. "Sure, they were alive once. That seems important." The aliens exchanged looks again. In all their travels, they had never met a species that memorialized extinct creatures they had never known. Most species barely remembered their own history. From the museum, they went to a small restaurant in Georgetown. Maria Rodriguez, who owned the place with her husband, was not prepared for alien customers. But she treated them like she treated everyone else. "I'm sorry, but I don't know what you guys eat," she said, bringing out plates of food. "This is just regular human food. Probably weird compared to your space food. I made extra in case you hate it. No charge if it's terrible." She brought them rice and beans, grilled chicken, fresh bread, and fruit salad. The aliens could not eat it, but they were amazed that Maria kept apologizing for not having better food for visitors she had never expected to meet. "Your species feeds strangers without payment?" Scholar Morton asked. "Well, not usually," Maria said. "But you're guests, and you came such a long way. Seems mean to let you go hungry. Sorry it's not fancier." Commander Vex High was quiet during the meal. He was thinking about his own species' first contact experiences. Usually primitive planets either worshipped the Zealothi as gods or tried to fight them as invaders. No one had ever apologized for not having better snacks by evening. The aliens had seen a school where teacher Nancy Wilson apologized for her students asking too many questions. They had visited a hospital where Dr. Paul Martinez apologized for human medicine being so crude. They had stopped at a gas station where the attendant Kevin Smith apologized for Earth's primitive transportation methods. Every human they met assumed the aliens were superior and apologized for not being better hosts. As they returned to the United Nations building, Commander Vex High finally understood what made humans unique. It was not their technology or their achievements. It was their complete inability to recognize how remarkable they were. "This is unprecedented," he told his companions in their own language. "A species that reaches the stars while believing it has barely left the ground." Scholar Morden agreed. "They have achieved more than most civilizations we have encountered, yet they think they are failures." Diplomat Zarathik pulsed thoughtfully. What kind of species apologizes to its guests for existing? They had come to Earth expecting to find either a primitive species begging for advancement or an aggressive species demanding respect. Instead, they found something that challenged every assumption in their database. They found humans who were genuinely S. The next morning, Commander Vex High made a request that shocked everyone. He wanted to visit a place with normal humans. Not politicians or scientists or anyone important. Just regular people living regular lives. Ambassador Park was worried. "Sir, we haven't prepared security for random locations. We don't know how civilians will react." "That is exactly why we want to see them," Scholar Morden said. His crystal body rang like bells when he spoke. "We want to see humans who are not trying to impress us." President Hayes agreed, though he looked nervous. "Where would you like to go?" "Anywhere," Diplomat Zarathik flickered. "Choose a place where humans gather naturally." 2 hours later, they were sitting in Betty's diner in a small town called Millfield, Virginia. The diner had been open since 1967. It had red vinyl booths, black and white checkered floors, and the smell of bacon grease that had soaked into everything over the decades. Betty Collins had owned the place for 35 years. She was 62 years old, had gray hair tied back in a bun, and had seen everything there was to see in small-town life. But she had never seen 3 aliens sitting in booth number 4 when the government cars pulled up and men in suits explained the situation. Betty just nodded and put on a fresh pot of coffee. "Well, I suppose everyone's got to eat somewhere," she said. She walked over to the booth where the 3 aliens sat with Jake Miller, who had somehow become their unofficial human guide. The other customers in the diner were trying not to stare, but doing a bad job of it. "Morning, folks," Betty said to the aliens. "I'm really sorry, but I don't have any idea what you all eat. This is just regular diner food. Probably nothing like what you're used to. The coffee's fresh, but it's not fancy coffee. Just the cheap stuff. Sorry about that." She poured coffee for Jake and looked uncertainly at the aliens. "I've got pie, but it's day-old apple pie. Made it yesterday. Probably not very good compared to space food. Sorry." Commander Vex High looked at the steaming cup of coffee Jake was drinking. "What is this beverage?" "Coffee," Jake said. "It's made from beans. We grind them up and pour hot water through them. Gives us energy. Want to try some? Though you probably have better stimulants on your ships." Betty brought over another cup and set it carefully in front of Commander Vex High. "Sorry if it's too hot. I never know how to serve aliens. This is all new to me." From across the diner, Earl Watson called out. Earl was 74 years old and had been coming to Betty's diner every morning for 20 years. He sat at the counter and argued about baseball with anyone who would listen. "Hey, are those really aliens?" Earl asked loudly. "Earl, hush," Betty said. "Don't be rude." "I'm not being rude," Earl protested. "I'm just curious. We've got visitors from space, and I can't even say hello." Jake looked embarrassed. "Sorry about Earl. He's been arguing about baseball for like 30 years. He's harmless, just loud. But Commander Vex High was interested. What is baseball? Earl's eyes lit up. He walked over to their booth, his cane tapping on the floor. Baseball is the greatest game ever invented. Though I guess you aliens probably have better games, with lasers or anti-gravity or something. Tell us about this baseball, Scholar Morton said. For the next hour, Earl explained baseball to 3 beings from across the galaxy. He talked about batting averages and World Series victories, and why the designated hitter rule was ruining the sport. Other customers joined the conversation. Soon the whole diner was talking about human sports, human food, human music, and human problems. What amazed the aliens was not what humans talked about, but how they talked about it. Every person who joined the conversation apologized for something. Sorry for interrupting. Sorry for not knowing more. Sorry for being boring. Sorry for talking too much. Betty apologized for the coffee being too strong. Earl apologized for caring too much about baseball. Sarah Kim, a nurse who stopped in during her break, apologized for complaining about her job. Tom Bradley, a construction worker, apologized for getting mud on the floor. But something else was happening too. As the conversation continued, the aliens began to share their own stories. Commander Vex High told them about his home planet. My species, the Kethai, conquered 12 worlds before we learned to build spaceships, he said. We were warriors first, explorers second. We took what we wanted from weaker species. The humans in the diner got quiet. They were not sure how to respond to that. Sounds like you were just trying to survive, Earl said finally. Sometimes you got to fight for what you need. Scholar Morton's lights pulsed slowly. My people. The Veltaran are made of living crystal. For thousands of years, we enslaved the organic life on our planet. We thought beings made of flesh were inferior. We used them as tools. Betty refilled his coffee cup, even though he had not touched it. Well, that sounds awful. But you stopped, right? That's what matters. Diplomat Zarathik flickered between. Different colors. My species nearly destroyed ourselves in civil wars. We fought for 3 centuries over energy sources. Billions died before we learned to share. Tom Bradley nodded. Yeah, we've got wars too. Humans fight about everything. Religion, land, money, you name it. We're not very good at sharing either. Commander. Vex High looked around the diner. But you admit this. You acknowledge your failures. Well, yeah, Sarah said. How else do you fix them? You can't solve problems if you pretend they don't exist. This was the moment everything changed for the aliens. They realized what made humans different from every other species they had encountered. Every civilization in the galaxy had dark periods in their history. Most species achieved technological advancement through conquest, exploitation, or internal conflict. The difference was that other species either forgot their shameful past or justified it as necessary evolution. Humans were the only species the aliens had met who were genuinely embarrassed by their history and actively working to do better. You feel shame for things your ancestors did? Scholar Morton asked. Of course, Betty said. Slavery, genocide, destroying the environment. Just because we didn't do it personally doesn't mean we can ignore it. Sorry, that probably sounds weird to you. It does sound weird, Commander Vex High admitted. Most species we encounter either deny their past mistakes or claim they were justified. Earl laughed. Well, we humans are pretty good at making mistakes. Might as well own up to them. Dr. Amanda Cross, who had been quietly taking notes in the Miley corner booth, suddenly understood something important. She stood up and addressed the aliens directly. You came here to evaluate whether humans deserve to join galactic civilization, she said. But you're not evaluating our technology or our military strength. You're trying to understand why we're different. Commander Vex High nodded. In our travels across the galaxy, we have encountered thousands of species. Some worship us as gods. Some challenge us as enemies. Some ignore us completely. But you are the first species that assumes we are superior while treating us as equals. You achieved spaceflight while still saying please and thank you to each other, Scholar Morden added. You developed nuclear weapons, but also created art and music and poetry. You have the capacity for great violence but choose to build hospitals and schools instead. Diplomat Zarathic's energy form pulsed brighter. Every species we have met achieved advancement through dominance, exploitation, or conflict. You achieved it while genuinely caring about the welfare of others, even strangers, even enemies. Betty looked confused. Well, yeah. What's the point of getting smarter if you don't use it to help people? The aliens were quiet for a long moment. Finally, Commander Vex-High spoke. We came here to determine if humans were ready to join the galactic community, he said. Instead, we have discovered that humans might be the first species actually qualified to lead it. Earl nearly choked on his coffee. Lead it? We can't even agree on pizza toppings. That is exactly why you are qualified, Scholar Morden said. You know you do not have all the answers. That makes you the only species we have met who might actually find them. The conversation continued for another 2 hours. The aliens learned about human holidays, human families, human dreams and fears. They learned that humans were not perfect, but they were trying to be better. And they learned that humans were the only species in the galaxy who thought that trying was more important than succeeding. When they finally left the diner, Betty packed them extra sandwiches for the road. Sorry, they're just ham and cheese, she said. Nothing fancy. But you never know when you might get hungry. As they walked back to their government escort, Commander Vex-High turned to his companions. We must contact the Council immediately, he said. This changes everything. 3 days after the diner conversation, everything changed. Amanda Cross was in her office when the alarm started blaring. Red lights flashed in the hallways. Her computer screen filled with urgent messages. More alien ships had arrived. These were not like the beautiful crystal ship of the Zelathi. These ships were dark metal, covered in weapons. They hung in the sky like storm clouds, blocking out the sun. There were 3 of them, each one bigger than the Zelathi vessel. Amanda ran to the main conference room where everyone was gathering. President Hayes was on the phone with military commanders around the world. General Stone was shouting orders to his staff. Ambassador Park was trying to contact the United Nations Security Council, Commander Vex-High, Scholar Morden, and Diplomat. Zarathic stood near the windows, looking up at the new ships. They did not look happy. Who are they? President Hayes asked. The Dominion, Commander Vex-High said. His insect features looked grim. They are a military empire. They conquer planets and enslave populations. We had hoped they would not notice your world. But they did notice, Scholar Morden added. And they see human kindness as weakness. The main screen in the room flickered to life. A face appeared that made everyone step back. It looked like a cross between a lizard and a shark, with 2 many teeth and eyes like black holes. When it spoke, its voice sounded like metal scraping against stone. I am War Marshal Kextar of the Dominion Fleet, it said. This planet is now under Dominion control. You will surrender immediately or be destroyed. You have 1 hour to decide. The screen went black. The room erupted in shouting. General Stone was demanding to know about Earth's defenses. Ambassador Park was asking about evacuation procedures. President Hayes was trying to call world leaders to coordinate a response, but Commander Vex-High looked defeated. Our protocols do not allow us to interfere in conflicts between other species and primitive worlds, he said quietly. We are observers, not protectors. So you're just going to leave? Jake Miller asked. He had been sitting quietly in the corner. But now he stood up. You're going to let them destroy us? We have laws, Scholar Morden said. His crystal form was dimmer than usual. If we break them, we risk war with the Dominion. Millions could die. Diplomat Zarathik flickered weakly. We are sorry, but we cannot help you fight. President Hayes looked around the room at all the panicked faces. Then he did something that surprised everyone. He picked up the phone and called for a global broadcast. Within minutes, every television, radio, and internet connection on Earth was carrying the same signal. President Hayes sat at his desk in the Oval Office, looking directly into the camera. But he was not talking to humans. He was talking to the aliens. Commander Vex High, Scholar Morden, Diplomat Zarathik, he began. We know you're listening. First, we want to say thank you for the past few days. It's been amazing getting to know you. We're sorry we've dragged you into our problems. We know you didn't sign up for this when you came to visit. Around the world, people stopped what they were doing to listen. But the president was not calling for panic or preparing them for war. We understand if you need to leave, he continued. You have your own people to think about. We don't want to cause trouble between you and this Dominion. That wouldn't be fair to you. Ambassador Park looked confused. This was not any kind of response protocol she had ever studied. We're probably going to lose this fight, President Hayes said honestly. We don't have weapons like theirs. We don't have experience with space battles. But we want you to know that meeting you has been the best thing that ever happened to our species. You've shown us that we're not alone in the universe. That's worth more than anything. The broadcast ended. For a moment, the room was silent. Then something unexpected began to happen. Around the world, ordinary people started making their own decisions. Carolyn Brooks was a third-grade teacher in Ohio. She had been watching the news with her class when the president made his speech. After it ended, she did not dismiss the children or send them home. Instead, she opened her laptop and started a video call. Hello, she said to the camera. My name is Carolyn Brooks. I teach 8-year-old children in Ohio. I don't know if any aliens are watching this, but if you are, we wanted to say hi. Her students crowded around the computer, waving at the camera. We're learning about space in school, Caroline continued. The kids have lots of questions about other planets. We know you're busy with important grown-up stuff, but if any of you want to talk to some human children, we'll be here. Within an hour, her video had been shared millions of times. Children from schools around the world were making similar videos. Teachers were setting up quantum communication links with alien ships, asking if anyone wanted to answer questions about life among the stars. Dan Peterson was a farmer in Kansas. He had been watching the news while harvesting corn. When he heard about the alien crisis, he did not hide in his basement or flee to the cities. Instead, he loaded his truck with food and drove to the nearest military base. I figure if we're having a war, people are going to get hungry, he told the confused soldiers at the gate. I brought corn, wheat, potatoes, and beef. For anyone who needs it, humans or aliens. There's no reason to let folks go without eating. Soon, farmers across the country were doing the same thing. Truckloads of food arrived at government buildings, military bases, and even at the landing site where the Zealoty ship was parked. The aliens watched in amazement as humans who were facing possible extinction worried about whether their guests had enough to eat. Patricia Lee was a nurse in California. She had been working a night shift when the alien warships arrived. Instead of going home to her family, she started organizing medical supplies. If there's going to be fighting, people are going to get hurt, she told her supervisor. We should be ready to help anyone who needs it. That includes aliens. They probably bleed too. Hospitals across the globe began preparing emergency aid stations. Medical professionals volunteered to treat alien casualties, even though they had no idea how alien biology worked. The Dominion warships detected massive medical supply movements, but their battle computers could not understand why humans were preparing to heal their enemies. Up in the Dominion flagship, War Marshal Kekstar was growing frustrated. His invasion protocols were designed for two types of species: those who surrendered immediately out of fear, and those who fought back with everything they had. Humans were doing neither. Instead of begging for mercy, they were apologizing for inconveniencing their invaders. Instead of mounting desperate attacks, they were offering food and medical aid. War Marshal Kekstar had conquered 47 worlds, but he had never encountered anything like this. "What are they doing?" he demanded of his tactical officers. "Unknown." "Sir," came the reply, "they appear to be helping us." The most confusing moment came when Ryan Clark, a young astronaut aboard the International Space Station, broadcast a message directly to both alien fleets. "Hi everyone," Ryan said, floating in zero gravity with Earth visible behind him. "I'm Ryan Clark. I'm up here on our space station. I can see all your ships from up here. They're pretty impressive. Look, we're really sorry we're not the most advanced species you've ever met. We're still learning how to do this whole civilization thing." He paused, looking out at the massive warships surrounding his tiny station. "I know some of you want to fight us, and some of you want to protect us, and honestly, we're not sure we deserve either. But here's the thing about humans: if you're going to destroy us, you'll have to do it while we're trying to help you. Because that's just who we are." Ryan held up a small package. "I've got some freeze-dried ice cream up here. It's not much, but if any of you want to try Earth food, I can throw it in your direction. Might take a while to reach you, but the thought's what counts, right?" The message was transmitted across all frequencies. Every ship in the area received it. On the Dominion flagship, War Marshal Kekstar stared at the screen in complete confusion. "How do you conquer a species that offers you ice cream while you're pointing weapons at them?" On the Zealoty ship, Commander Vex High was having his own crisis. He had spent his entire career following protocols and regulations. But watching humans face possible extinction while worrying about alien comfort was making him question everything he had ever believed about duty and honor. "Sir," Scholar Morden said quietly, "the humans are not asking us to fight for them." "No," Commander Vex High replied, "they are not. They are asking us to remember them kindly." "Yes." Diplomat Zarathik pulsed with an emotion that had no name in any alien language. What kind of species faces death while apologizing for not being better hosts? Commander Vex High looked out at the Dominion warships, then down at the planet below, where billions of humans were living their last hours the same way they had lived all their hours, trying to help each other and anyone else who needed it. He made a decision that would change galactic history. "Tactical," he said to his crew, "move us between Earth and the Dominion fleet." "Sir, that violates every protocol we have," his tactical officer replied. "Yes," Commander Vex High said, "it does." The Zealoty crystal ship moved slowly between Earth and the Dominion fleet. It was beautiful and graceful, but it looked tiny compared to the three massive warships. On Earth, people watched their televisions and computer screens in amazement. The aliens who had come to judge them were now protecting them. War Marshal Kekstar could not believe what he was seeing. "The Zealoty are breaking their own laws," he told his officers. "They never interfere in planetary conquests." But something else was happening that confused him even more. All across Earth, humans were broadcasting messages directly to his fleet. Not threats or demands for mercy, but personal invitations. A group of children in Brazil sent a video of them drawing pictures of spaceships. "We made these for you," said a little girl named Rosa. "We don't know what you look like, but we drew you with smiles. We hope you're not too sad about having to fight. Fighting makes everyone sad." An elderly man in Japan called Hiroshi recorded himself making origami paper cranes. "In our culture, these birds mean peace," he said, holding up the delicate paper. "Figures. I'm making 1,000 of them. Not to stop your war, but because maybe you need some peace too." Everyone needs peace. A teenager in Nigeria named Bukola stood in front of her school. "Hi, alien soldiers," she said. "I know you probably have to attack us because someone told you to. That must be really hard. Having to hurt people when you might not want to. We're sorry you're in that situation." Hundreds of similar messages were coming in. Humans were not pleading for their lives. They were expressing sympathy for soldiers who were about to destroy them. On the Dominion flagship, the crew was getting restless. They had been trained to conquer planets where the inhabitants either cowered in fear or fought back with desperate fury. They knew how to handle enemies who hated them or subjects who worshipped them. They had no idea what to do with people who felt sorry for them. "Sir," one of the tactical officers said to War Marshal Kekstar, "the troops are asking questions. They want to know why we're attacking the species that keeps offering us help." War Marshal Kekstar growled. In 47 previous conquests, his soldiers had never questioned orders. "Because they are weak," he said. "Their kindness is a sign of weakness." But even as he said it, he was not sure he believed it anymore. The breaking point came when a woman named Helen Murphy broadcast from a hospital in Ireland. She was a doctor who had been working for 36 straight hours treating patients. Her scrubs were stained and her face was exhausted, but she smiled at the camera. "Hello to the soldiers in the big ships," she said. "I'm Helen. I'm a doctor. Here on Earth, I've been watching the news between surgeries. I wanted you to know that we've set up medical stations for you. If any of your people get hurt in the fighting, we'll take care of them. I know that probably sounds strange, but it's what we do. We help anyone who needs help, even if they're shooting at us." She held up a medical chart. "We don't know anything about alien biology, so we probably won't be very good at it. Sorry about that, but we'll try our best. Everyone deserves medical care, even in wartime." On the Dominion ships, soldiers who had conquered dozens of worlds found themselves staring at screens showing humans preparing to heal their enemies. Many of them had never seen anything like it. In Dominion culture, enemies were destroyed, not helped. Some of the younger soldiers started asking uncomfortable questions. If humans were really weak, why were they offering to risk their lives? Helping Dominion casualties? If humans were really evil, why were their children making drawings for alien soldiers they had never met? War Marshal Kekstar realized his invasion was falling apart. Not because of superior weapons or clever tactics, but because his own troops were being psychologically disarmed by unprecedented kindness. He decided to end it quickly. "All ships, prepare to fire on the planet's major cities," he ordered, but before he could give the final command, something extraordinary happened. Dominion soldiers on all 3 ships began refusing orders. Not in an organized rebellion, but in individual acts of conscience. A weapons officer named Grixon powered down his guns. A communications specialist named Yeltar started broadcasting messages of his own to Earth, apologizing for his commander's actions. Within an hour, 2 of the 3 Dominion ships had crews in open revolt. The soldiers were not fighting each other, but they were not following orders either. Many of them had requested asylum on Earth, asking if humans would accept refugees from the army that had come to destroy them. The answer came back immediately. "Of course," President Hayes said in a public broadcast. "Anyone who wants to live in peace is welcome here. We'll figure out the details later. That's what neighbors do." War Marshal Kekstar found himself alone on his flagship with only a handful of loyal officers. His invasion force had been defeated not by superior firepower, but by humans who had weaponized empathy. Faced with the complete collapse of his mission, War Marshal Kekstar did something he had never done before. He surrendered. "This is War Marshal Kekstar to Earth forces," he said, his voice tired and confused. We surrender. We don't understand your species, but we can't fight people who keep trying to help us." The response came from Jake Miller, who had somehow Become Earth's unofficial alien relations coordinator. Hey, no problem, Jake said. You guys want to come down and talk about it? We've got coffee and sandwiches. Betty at the diner says she can make enough food for everyone. Might take a while to figure out what you can eat, but we'll work it out. 6 months later, Dr. Amanda Cross published a research paper that became the most important document in galactic history. It was called Aggressive Empathy: How Humans Weaponize Self-Awareness and Compassion. The paper described how humanity had accidentally developed the galaxy's most powerful diplomatic tool. Other species conquered through strength or intelligence. Humans conquered through the simple act of assuming the best in others while acknowledging the worst in themselves. It was a combination that no other civilization had ever achieved. The paper became required reading in every diplomatic academy across the galaxy. Alien students studied human behavior patterns, trying to understand how a species could be simultaneously humble and confident, self-critical and optimistic, weak and unstoppable. Earth was inducted into the Galactic Council not as a junior member, but as the head of the new Department of Interspecies Relations. Humans became the galaxy's diplomatic corps, specializing in resolving conflicts that had raged for centuries. Ambassador Lisa Park, now Earth's first galactic representative, gave her inaugural address to the Council. "Thank you for accepting us into your community," she said. "We're really sorry we're new to this whole galactic civilization thing. We'll probably mess up a lot, but we're excited to learn from everyone and hopefully help out where we can." The response from the assembled aliens was unprecedented. For the first time in galactic history, an entire council chamber erupted in applause for a species that had just apologized for existing. Human diplomats were soon stationed on worlds across the galaxy. They had an amazing success rate at ending conflicts, mostly by listening to both sides and then apologizing for not understanding the situation better. Warring species found it impossible to stay angry when mediators kept asking what they could do to help and expressing genuine regret for not being more useful. Dominion worlds were among the first to request human diplomatic assistance. Soldiers who had once planned to conquer Earth now lined up for citizenship applications. They wanted to learn how to live in a society where strength came from admitting weakness and where the greatest honor was in helping others succeed. War Marshal Kextar himself settled in a small town in Montana where he worked as a ranch hand for a farmer named Carl Johnson. Carl treated him like any other employee, which meant he complained about the weather, apologized for the long hours, and invited Kextar to family barbecues. "I spent 40 years conquering planets," Kextar told a reporter. "I thought power came from making others fear you. These humans taught me that real power comes from making others feel safe." Betty's Diner in Millfield, Virginia, became an unofficial embassy. Aliens from across the galaxy would stop by to experience authentic human culture. Betty treated them all the same way she treated everyone else, with coffee, pie, and apologies for not having anything better to offer. The diner's walls were now covered with thank you notes written in dozens of alien languages. Most of them said the same thing: "Thank you for showing us a better way to live." Commander Vex High was promoted to the newly created position of Human-Alien Relations Coordinator. His job was to help other species understand why humans were so effective at diplomacy. He spent most of his time explaining the same simple truth over and over again. "Humans are not perfect," he would tell confused alien diplomats. "That is exactly what makes them perfect for this job. They know they don't have all the answers, so they listen. They know they make mistakes, so they try to do better. They know they're not the strongest or smartest species in the galaxy, so they focus on being the kindest." The galaxy was changing. Wars that had lasted for generations ended when human mediators arrived and started apologizing for not understanding the conflict better. Trade disputes were resolved when humans admitted they probably didn't know enough about EC